What's going on, guys? With League Start right around the corner and a bunch of build guides coming out, I thought it might be fun to look at some skills that might be considered a little bit more hipster. First, let's talk about melee ignites. In the 3.17 patch notes and actually in the manifesto, we got some information about the Infernal Cry Threshold Jewel. And this jewel disables the ability for exerted attacks to trigger combust, but causes attacks exerted by Infernal Cry to deal much more ignite damage. How much more ignite damage, we don't really know yet. They haven't shared that information with us. But I've had the desire to do a melee ignite build for quite some time, and I actually looked at trying to do an Earthquake Ignite Chieftain last league. But after I POB'd it, it just felt like there wasn't enough damage there. Not to mention the fact that the Elemental Overload rework kinda hurt melee ignite builds, especially slower attacks like Earthquake, because now you have to build enough crit and enough accuracy to try to consistently proc EO on that skill. But maybe now it's possible with this jewel to get more damage out of those attacks. So there's Earthquake Ignite Chieftain, but what about an Ice Crash Elementalist? I mean, Elementalist makes up like 99% of all ignite builds in Path of Exile, which is a good and a bad thing. It's a good thing because it takes a lot of the thinking out of it, sort of a bad thing because it's a little boring. But I definitely think there's some potential there with melee skills like Ice Crash and Elementalist to do some pretty cool things with Ignite. And if you want to become the ultimate hipster, then maybe you could try out Doriani's Fist Ignite. Definitely something to think about. Next, we have Ice Spear. Obviously, a ton of spells got buffed for self-casting, but some skills got improvements specifically to deal more single target damage. And in a league with a bunch of new bosses, single target damage is going to be of high priority. GGG gave Flame Blast, Lightning Tendrils, and Ice Spear some improvements to make them great skills for dealing high damage against a single target. And outside of some cast on crit builds, we don't really see Ice Spear all that often. I know the last time I played a build that had Ice Spear in it was in Blight League, and that was an Icicle Minor where I had a Shaper helmet with a pseudo 5 link with Ice Spear in it. But the single target damage with Ice Spear at that time was actually insane. And of course, Mathil has had some hipster builds with Ice Spear as well, like his Ice Spear Totem Deadeye that got a lot of attention during Ritual League. But now that it's been significantly buffed for self-casting, you could possibly pour yourself a craft beer and get ready to mow down some bosses. Next, we have Flame Surge. If you want to be as hipster as it gets, then you can try to make a Flame Surge build work. I tried to do a Flame Surge build during Expedition League, and let me tell you, that skill is in dire need of a rework. It's possible that the damage might be much better now, but mechanically it just feels really bad. But if you're feeling extra spicy and up for a challenge, then that skill might be right down your alley. Next up, we have Exsanguinate. Since the insane popularity of the Fizz Trapper in recent leagues, we haven't really seen too many self-casting Exsanguinate builds. I know in Ultimatum when the skill first came out, I tried to do a Trickster self-cast Exsanguinator, and it wasn't all that bad, but there was an Elementalist version that was just much stronger. And honestly, that was just really due to the fact that Elementalist was broken at the time. They got a ton of extra damage from golems that has since been nerfed. So maybe it's possible now to revisit the damage over time portion of Exsanguinate in a self-casting build. It looks like Exsanguinate's damage over time itself actually wasn't buffed, but it's possible that the added damage effectiveness buff does something for the damage over time. How much? It'll be a little hard to tell. I feel like Exsanguinate is a little bit lower on the hipster scale, but I thought it was worth mentioning. And lastly, we have Fire Trap. I think Fire Trap is a skill that a lot of people are ignoring or sleeping on this league. It pretty much got a massive buff with no nerfs to it. I've been considering Fire Trap as my league starter, so I actually made a low life Sabo Fire Trap build. It's not fully fleshed out, but it's sitting at around 1.3 million DPS. And that's without Awakened Gems, Gem Quality, Gem Levels, and without Vault RF. And this damage is pre-buff damage as well, meaning that it's just going to increase by a decent amount on League Start because of the buffs to Fire Trap. But once again, since this build is scaling Ignite and damage over time from the trap itself, it might just be that Elementalist is better than a Saboteur. Not just because of the Ignite though, but also because of the positioning on the tree. They get access to all the fire nodes relatively easily, and they get access to all the trap nodes that aren't that far away from them. And it's quite possible that you can get a similar amount of damage without having to go low life, which will save you a lot of currency in the end because you don't have to get a 6-link Shavs. But yeah guys, that's my short little list of hipster build ideas that you might want to consider, maybe not as a starter build, but maybe partway into the league when you're ready to play something else. Thanks for watching dudes, and don't forget to like and subscribe.